See you. My name is Sean Q. I am your abundance coach today, and I am pretty excited to be live streaming with you today. So, I am going to go ahead and share a training today that has been so meaningful for me in my own business. And I know that as you lean in, as you tap into these 7 laws of abundance that I'm about to share with you today, what I really want you to do is take notes, but also make a decision right now that you're going to make this a reality for you. The 7 laws of abundance. And if you're live with us, go ahead and put hashtag team live. If you're on the rerun, go ahead and put hashtag team rerun. Thank you so much for spending time with me today. I see Abby's with us. So good to see you. And I see Heather's with us. So good to see you. I am so excited for today because this training has been so powerful for so many people who have leaned in and have really applied these 7 laws to their life. Now, these 7 laws aren't spiritual or woo-woo, nothing wrong with that. These are scientifically proven based off of psychological research that we have studied and kind of distilled into these practices that allow you to create more opportunity, allow you to create more success, and allow you to create more joy in your life. I love it, Abby. Hashtag Team Lab. So good. Now, I want to know, as you have taken the challenge over the last several days, as you've watched the replays, maybe this is your first time, or maybe it's your 19th time. We've actually done this challenge about 19 times. So maybe this is your 19th time. Hey, Lily, good to see ya. I want to know, what has been the most meaningful changes and shifts and pivots that you've made recently? And tell me a little bit more about what you're experiencing in your own coaching practice. Michelle, so good to see you. I want to know, what has been most meaningful for you, and what have you started experiencing within your own coaching practice? Maybe for you, you've started experiencing a lot more joy. Maybe you've started getting into more conversations. I want to know. And then also let me know in the chat right now, take 30 seconds. What are you currently facing? What is the obstacle or the mountain or the challenge that's right in front of you that you are looking at and saying, I'm going to conquer you? What is the challenge or the obstacle or the mountain that you're facing, the giant you want to take out? What is that giant? Let me know in the chat. Abby says, self-development. Yes, to more joy and healing. I love it. So good. Let me know. Can you hear me okay? Also, my hair is kind of all whack. I was just on stage speaking at an event in Orlando, Florida called Captrovians Live. Actually, I want to show you the shirt that they got me. Look at that. That's me. It was like the coolest shirt ever. So, yeah, let me know in the chat. What is the obstacle or challenge that you're facing right now? Abby says, would love to have more sales. I love that. And when you say more, is that 1 more? Is that 10 more? Let me know in the chat. Sean says, yes, we hear you. Hair is looking good. Baller shirt. So cool. Okay. Sean, good to see you. So, I know. Was that a sloth? It is a sloth. Okay, we're just gonna have a little bit of fun today. So their mascot is a sloth, and it's so cool. So there's like a sloth hugging my neck and face. It's just the coolest thing ever. So yeah, it's pretty fun. Abby says at least 10 more. I love it. Abby, let me know in the chat, what does that number mean? Let's say you landed 10 clients today. How many clients does that? How much revenue does that mean for you? Michelle says, love the sloth. Michelle says, I wrote an outline based on the coaching call we had the other day. Oh my gosh. And pitched the 6-week idea to 3 people. 1 who snagged it. Michelle, that's amazing. That's wild. Congratulations. That's amazing. Can we just share some congratulatory chat comments? That's just amazing. Let's spread the love and the support. And this is going to be for free for somebody. Maybe you're listening and you're like, man, why can't that be me? One of the things that oftentimes happens is we begin to do one of 2 things. We either compare ourselves. How many of you are in that camp? That used to be me, 100%. Somebody say yes in the chat. I used to compare myself a ton where, man, why are they winning? Or why are they succeeding? Or, man, I wish I was there. Man, I wish I had their problems. There's a quote that says, more money, more problems. Well, I wish I had the more money problems. And so I used to compare myself, and it would create a lot of distress. It would create a lot of shame. It would create a lot of confusion and overwhelm and anxiety. How many of you have been there? There was one shift, and this is just for free. There's one shift that I made that created more joy in my life whenever someone else won. That I was able to see myself in the win. And that was, instead of comparing, we're celebrating, we're enjoying, we're cheering them on. If I were you, the number one thing I would do is send comment below and say, Michelle, what made it for you? Like, how did it happen for you? What made the difference for you? You celebrate and you lean in. Success begets success. And so lean in and say, hey, if you could do it, I can too. How do I make it happen for me? So good. Abby says, Heather is such a joy to be around. 100%. Right? Like, 20% of the reason why I'm Heather's friend, to be completely honest, because of her laughter. Because she just has so much fun. So funny. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump into today's training. I do want to jump into today's training. Have you ever noticed that for some people it just happens, and for other people it just doesn't happen? Like you're going about life and you see kind of the haves and the have-nots, or the people who, like, man, it just always works out for them, and for other people, like, they're just experiencing mountain after mountain after mountain. Well, that's why we discovered these 7 laws of abundance and went on a hunt for them. And so what I want you to do is, as you begin to apply these 7 laws of abundance, you're going to start seeing more opportunity get created. You're going to start seeing a brighter world. Oftentimes we look through the lens of our childhood or our upbringing or the beliefs that we were given by our parents and our family. And I want to shift that lens. I want to kind of shatter that lens of limitation and shift it so that you're using a lens of abundance when you look out into the world. You see what's possible. And so, is it okay if I do that today? Somebody say heck yes in the chat. Michelle says the whole face. Laughter is definitely her trademark. Heather, 100%. Heather says, so funny, Sean. I love lots of laughter and such a unique laugh too. My mom tells me she can find me in a store if she just stays quiet because she's going to hear her laughter. So good. Abby says, yes, shatter those old lens. Sean says, yes. So good. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. And for some reason, my slides weren't working, so I'm just we're gonna have fun today with the tech. This is what we see everywhere, like on news articles. We see this on the newspapers. We see this online. We see this on Twitter. We see this literally everywhere. Alert! 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 Emergency! Things are going wrong. The world is ending, and there are legitimate issues that the world is facing. I mean, there are legitimate challenges that people are experiencing right now. There are people who are going hungry. There are people who are experiencing disease and are riddled with disease. And there are things that are absolutely happening in the world. And not to diminish those at all, because those are true, real challenges people are facing. Here is the truth about our species as a whole. We live in the most abundant era of our species' existence on this planet. Somebody put the word abundance in the chat. We live in the most abundant era of our entire species' existence, in the history of us existing on this planet. Right now is the most abundant era of our species' existence, and I'll prove it to you. That abundance is actually a reality. We just haven't caught up to it. Number one, life expectancy is up from a world average of less than 30 years in the mid-18th century to over 70 years today. We're living longer. Hunger and famine were a normal part of life throughout most of history for 99% of people. The only true people who had enough access to food were the uber rich, right? Think of the lords of land or kings and queens. Today, people have access to, on average, over 2,500 calories per day. In other words, we're eating more and with more variety. Wealth, as seen in the gross world product, was stagnant or slowly growing for most of human history, but it has grown almost 200-fold from the start of the Enlightenment period in the 18th century. In other words, we're wealthier across the board. Did you know? Go 200 years ago, 95% of our species were in extreme poverty. Today, it's 5%. The number flipped, literally flipped on its head. 5% of the world today lives in extreme poverty. Deaths from virtually all kinds of accidents have drastically fallen. Violent crime is no longer a part of normal life for most people. War is discouraged, even though there are challenges happening right now. You can see how much people actively discourage it. Before, if a kingdom took over another kingdom, well, okay, cool, that's what they did. Deaths are down from both battles and genocide compared to just 300 years ago. Work hours have decreased from over 60 hours per week in both the US and Western Europe in 1870 to around 40 hours today. Now, if you're an entrepreneur, you're probably working more than 40 hours. Here's what's really cool, though, is the typical house required over 120 hours of work for upkeep. 120 hours. But thanks to the invention of technology like the laundry machine and refrigerators and brooms and vacuums, now it only takes 13 hours a month. Democracy and freedom. 2/3 of the world's population now lives in free or relatively free societies versus 1% in 1860. 1816, in other words, we're freer. And we have more access to knowledge around the world. Children are going to school longer. Literacy is on the rise. Women are closing the education gap with men across the world as more cultures decide to educate their girls. Somebody say, amen, that's a great thing. In other words, we're smarter. Just 100 years ago, we didn't have toilets or indoor plumbing. We didn't have dentistry. We didn't have access to music like we do. We didn't have technology, the same technology that we're using right now to stream this training. Isn't it wild to think about how far as a species we've come? Now, again, there are real challenges. And yet, if you take a much bigger perspective of what the world, what we have access to as a species, we are so much farther ahead. So even though we've experienced all this progress, people still struggle with scarcity, lack, and poverty in both resource and mindset. And I went on a mission to uncover why. Why do people struggle with scarcity, lack, and poverty? Well, it's because the world is this four things. The world is volatile, uncertain, complex, or ambiguous. The world is volatile. In other words, there's a lot of change that happens, and it's pretty unpredictable, just in its nature and extent. Number two, it's uncertain. We don't know what tomorrow holds. And so that uncertainty creates a lot of fear in our lives as a species and causes us to think limited. The world is complex. There are many different interconnected factors that come into play with the potential to cause chaos and confusion. There's just so many variables that can impact one thing or another. And ambiguous. There's a lack of clarity or awareness about situations. So because that's the case, our brain cannot handle that. Our brain was designed with one function. Our brain was evolved with one function. Just one. Everything else is like extra. Its primary function is survivability. Our brain's primary goal is to keep you alive. Number one thing it does, it processes information so rapidly. In other words, it prioritizes survival over accuracy. We have over 180 cognitive biases. In other words, there are over 180 ways our brain lies to us about the world that we see. We have outdated beliefs. We have subconscious patterns. We have hormonal addiction, and we have trauma gaps. These four things are the scientific reasons why we have limitations in our belief system and in our processes, why we don't have a lens of abundance. Let me break these four things down. Is that okay? Is this like super interesting for anybody already? Let me know in the chat. 4 things that our brain does, or the 4 ways our brain lies to us through these 180 cognitive biases. Outdated beliefs. Let's talk about this one for a second. There's a story I like to tell of a great-great-grandma who, when she cooks her ham, she would cut it in half because her pots were only big enough to cook half a ham at a time. So she would cut the ham in half and then cook one in one pot and cook another in another. Generations later, the family still cooked hams by cutting it in half and putting one in one pot and another in another. Now, here's the truth. Somebody pointed it out and said, hey, why do you cook your hams that way? Well, she said, I don't know. That's just how my mom taught me. And the friend said, well, you know, you have a bigger pot. You could just cook it in one big pot. And she's like, oh, I didn't realize that. So now they stopped that outdated belief of cutting the ham in half and they cook it in one big pot. even though a process worked at one time, right? The process of cutting the ham in half worked. It was what you had to do to cook the ham generations back. It is an outdated belief, and so it no longer is the best way to approach life today. How many of you know that you have been taught beliefs, taught things, taught ways of doing life from your family that you have had to undo? Because maybe it worked for them, but it doesn't work for you. Let me know in the chat. Let me know what that one belief is. What beliefs have you had to let go of? Because even though it worked for them, it didn't work for you. The second is subconscious patterns. Have you ever bought in something and then you start seeing that thing everywhere? Like, for example, like years ago, I bought a red car and I started seeing red cars everywhere after I bought a red car. And it wasn't that there were more red cars on the streets. It simply was my reticular activating system, the part of my brain that finds patterns, started noticing these things more frequently because I had experienced it in the first place. Your subconscious patterns are the things you don't even know. I call these your secret beliefs, your silent assumptions about how the world works. Your subconscious patterns through your reticular activating system is what creates patterns. So maybe I'll give you an example. Have you ever bought something and you feel really good about it? And so you go to school or you go to work, you go wherever, and somebody makes a comment like, "Oh, that blue doesn't really look good on you." So you're like, "Okay, that's just one person." But then somebody else says it. Now your brain's saying, hey, there's a pattern here. This must really not look good on you. So even though it might look phenomenal on you, because 2 people out of the 8 billion people in the world said it, there's a pattern and there's a strength to that belief now. So maybe for you, growing up, every time money was talked about, it was the same thing that would happen. Frustration, tension, anger. Maybe for you, every single time somebody was succeeding, people would make fun of them. I know growing up for me, it was like, oh, look at that person thinking they're all snooty and elite. And so because I saw that pattern over and over, I had silent assumptions that that was a bad thing. How many of you know you have silent assumptions about the world that you need to let go of? The next one, this is huge for entrepreneurs, is hormonal addiction. This is cortisol. So cortisol is the chemical that releases in your body when you're experiencing stress. And it releases it in your body so that you can function to survive. Cortisol is like adrenaline. It like starts pumping your blood faster. You start having high blood pressure. It starts to hone in your senses. So you actually become blind in a couple of ways because you're so focused on one thing. And you experience this stress you experience cortisol. What happens with cortisol is it's actually addictive. Your brain becomes addicted to cortisol. So even though you might have adrenaline, right? You're running, you have adrenaline, that adrenaline will eventually dissipate. Like your body can break down adrenaline really easy, but it can't break down cortisol as easily. So it becomes addicted to experiencing that high. This is massive for those of you who want to experience freedom in your life and in your schedule. I remember there was a time where I started seeing a lot of there wasn't a lot of stuff on my calendar. Especially when I first got started, there was a ton of stuff on my calendar. I was working hard, I was hustling, I was grinding, I was doing all the things. Then we eventually started to delegate and build, systems to remove me from the business. So less things were on my calendar, and it freaked me out. I was stressed like crazy because my body and my brain were so used to having a full calendar. It didn't know how to handle or regulate itself without that hit of cortisol. So what happens is this creates self-sabotage. I would start putting things on my calendar and busying myself up just because I needed that hit. How many of you have experienced self-sabotage? How did you experience self-sabotage? Let me know in the chat. How many of you know you've experienced self-sabotage? Let me know in the chat. The other is trauma gaps. Now, these are actual neurological gaps that are happening in the brain. So if you take a look at a brain that's experienced zero trauma and a brain that's experienced trauma, what happens is there's actually physical gaps in the gray matter in your brain, and oftentimes associated with that trauma. This is why a frequent signal that you've experienced trauma as a kid is you don't remember a lot of things from your childhood. This is something that was really helpful for me is as a child, I experienced a lot of trauma. And so it's really difficult for me to remember because your brain actually protects itself from those events. And so you start to forget a lot of things. And so there are trauma gaps, and this also causes some limitations to how you can experience abundance in your life. Is this like blowing somebody's mind right now? Like, I want to know, are you like, oh my gosh, this is so me? This is exactly what I've experienced. Let me know in the chat. Abby says, I'm still healing from trauma. Lily says, self-sabotage, 100%. Valerie says, we all self-sabotage to protect ourselves. Shirley says, me. Yes, 100%. Can you see how these things, outdated beliefs, subconscious patterns, hormonal addiction, and trauma gaps, are the reasons why you may not finish a program, or you may not sign up for something that could help you, or you may not fulfill on the thing that you said you were going to do, or why you might procrastinate? All these things are in front of you. So one of the reasons why a lot of our clients experience success is because we don't just deal with, here's the tactic, now go do it. It's okay, let's deal with the root causes of a lot of the reasons why you can't do it. And once we clear that, then we can actually get you to move forward. So how do we start to change this? How do we actually do something where this changes? And let me actually make this a little more full screen for you. How do we change this? That's where the 7 laws of abundance come into play. These 7 laws of abundance help to rid yourself of those 180 cognitive biases, or at least allow you to navigate those biases. Okay, this is how to experience more success, opportunity, and joy in your life as a master or emerging coach. Now, how many of you are excited to be here, right? How many of you are excited about this bonus training today? Let me know in the chat. I love what Valerie said, which is especially the things we tell ourselves we're going to do. Michelle says, I have a ton of progress I've made a lot of progress in these areas, and there's always room for improvement. Yes, 100%. Listen, I have been doing this for, probably about 13 years now, and there's still things that I uncover like, oof, I didn't realize I had more work to do there. So this is so good. Now, many of you have already seen this and know my story. I was a little bit of a rock star. That's our baby girl. That's an older photo of her. She's a little bit older now, but she's so cute in that picture. And that's my beautiful wife. I have been able to build an incredible life and an incredible business where I get to speak. Right now, I'm in Orlando, Florida, speaking at an event. I'll be in Omaha and Houston, eventually speaking at an event. I've been able to build an incredible team. I've been able to do retreats at beautiful locations. I had and sold a professional studio. I mean, it's been pretty incredible. And these laws have helped me do that. So law number 1. So make sure you put these laws in the chat. Comment them in the chat so other people can read them as well. Law number 1 is you have what you're willing to ask for. You have what you're willing to ask for. You have not because you ask not. You have what you're willing to ask for. So what do you really, 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 really want? And how often have you been asking? One of the first things I want you to do, and somebody put this in the chat, it's called desire discovery. Desire discovery. Desire discovery is where you discover what it is you actually truly want. We have an exercise we do called desire discovery where we have our clients write down literally everything they want from life. Everything in every area. What do you want for your finances? What do you want for your friendships? What do you really want in your marriage? What do you really want from your relationships with your kids? What do you really want with your relationships with your other extended family? What do you want in your adventure and fun? What do you want from spirituality or your religious faith tradition? What do you want in this life? List every single thing you want down. And here's what begins to happen. What happens is as you start to write down everything you want, beliefs start to creep up. So I remember I said, I want to take 6 weeks off vacation. I wrote that down. And the first thing that came up when I wrote that down was this. Oh my gosh, my staff and my clients are going to hate me. They're going to be so pissed at me because they're not going to be able to reach me. They're not going to be able to contact me. They're going to be so mad at me. And here's what happened is I discovered there was a root of people pleasing in there, that I wasn't leading in this area. So I wrote down more things. I want a beautiful home in San Diego on the beach. Like, I want to be able to have access to the beach. I want a beautiful home. I had very specific things I wanted. And the first thought that came up is, I don't know, we're going to have to deal with the salt in the air, and things rust, and who's going to clean that house? And all these beliefs started coming up simply because I wrote down what I wanted. It's so interesting how often these beliefs come up when we pursue our desires, when we just document those desires. So what happens is we begin to limit those desires. We say, well, actually, I don't want a house on the beach. Maybe I want a house more inland. And I don't need a big house. I just need a small house. And we end up going from thriving language, where it's like, I want all this, to, well, I can settle. Somebody catch that. I can settle, or I'll be comfortable with just this thing. Settling and comfort are scarcity minded. It's scarcity perspective, limited perspective. And so write down the things you actually want. I highly recommend find a sacred spot, put calm music on, and write down everything you want. And then start asking for it. So the beach house in San Diego, guess what? We started asking people, hey, does anyone own a beach house in San Diego? Does anyone help people buy beach houses in San Diego? Does anyone help build beach houses in San Diego? And what happened was we started getting people who wanted to help us, and they started connecting us with the right person. And it's so important because I realized, people want to help us move forward with these visions. And I just didn't ask for it because I didn't know I could. So it's super powerful. You have what you're willing to ask for. What do you want? Start asking people, do you know anyone who could help me achieve this? Okay, law number two. Was that good or what? Law number 2, you always have something to give. You always have something to give. If I heard this quote or this poem, it was an Asian, North Asian poem, and it was, if you want to receive love, you may not receive it. If you want to give love, who can stop you? If you want to receive kindness, you may not receive it. If you want to give kindness, who can stop you? And I think it's so powerful because it ignites a sense of ownership over our life. We always have something to give. We always have something to sow. There's ancient wisdom that goes, you reap what you sow. You want something? Go sow the seeds of it, and you'll reap it eventually. It's true. You want more clients? Here's one key insight to building strategic relationships that give you referrals. One of my number one priority. So I'll give you an example. I'm here in Orlando, Florida. I spoke at this event, and I was meeting about 30 to 40 people. You want to know what my number one priority is at events like this? It's not to sell my stuff. It's to connect other people with people I know. Because if I can say, hey, what kind of clients do you want to land? I might know someone. They will then say, well, what kind of clients do you want? I might know someone. And now there's a reciprocity at play. So my number one question to people whenever I meet them, or I'm at a networking meeting or at a conference, is, hey, what kind of client are you looking for right now? I would love to go into my mental Rolodex and see if I know someone that would fit there. Because if I can give a client, I can then sow the seed for receiving a client. Law number 2, you always have something to give. One of the exercises I have our clients do is we have them write down 5 things they can always give. 5 things they can always give. Number 1, it's always time. You can always give your time. Maybe for you have a skill set that you're able to provide someone. Maybe you have an expertise that you can provide an audit for, or like a consultation. Just 5 things. Maybe it's kindness or a word of encouragement. Like, you're really good at that. Maybe it's just, I love what Lily says, being present with people. 100%, that's a gift to someone. Occasionally, on Fridays, what I do is my giving hour. And I'll choose someone random, and I'll say, hey, you know what? I have an hour. What can I do for you in this next hour that would help you move forward? Can I make something for you? I'm really good at Canva and graphic design, so can I make a design for you? Can I introduce you to someone? How can I spend this next hour supporting you? I can't tell you how many times I've gotten referrals, or those people have become clients simply for my giving hour. Hey, I'm here to help you win. I'm here to help you grow. You always have something to give. Law number 3, your emotions fuel abundance. So let me kind of break this down. Your body knows more about you than your mind does. Here's how I know this. Your body communicates to your brain way more than your brain communicates to your body. Did you know about 15% of the body-brain connection is from brain to body, the brain telling the body what to do? 85% of communication between brain and body is the body communicating to the brain. Specifically, let's go ahead and get a little bit sciencey, if you will. You have something called your vagus nerve. Your vagus nerve, you have 2 of them actually. They go down your spine. Then they spread out through your whole body. Your body is constantly receiving information through your gut or through your vagus nerves, and all that information that gets translated to what's called your limbic system or your amygdala. Your limbic system is right in the back of your head. Let me go ahead and just go full screen so you can kind of see me bigger. So your limbic system and your amygdala is right back here. Somebody just pat the back of your head and say, hey, thank you, limbic system, you're keeping me alive. This is where fight, flight, freeze, or fawn happens. This is where it's kind of the lizard brain. It's the first thing that gets developed when you are conceived. Before the age of, I think it's 7 years old, you primarily function in the world through your limbic system and not your prefrontal cortex, which is where all the thought and logic happens. So this is what is survival right here. This little part of your brain lets you be in survival mode. It lets you stay alive, essentially. Your body every second sees the world about 50 times a second and communicates if it's in danger or not. Your body knows if there's a spider next to you faster than you, the identity part of you, like your prefrontal cortex, knows if there's a spider next to you. There have been tests that show, even though you haven't seen it and you're not aware of it, your body's aware of the danger around you because your body is seeing, is there danger? Is this safe for me? Am I going to stay alive? And then you'll start reacting just like impulsively without even thinking about it, because again, it's this part of your brain that's controlling your body and communicating mostly with your body. Now, if you're safe, everyone take a deep breath in and a deep breath out. What you're doing is you're telling your body that you don't need to run right now, or you don't need to fight right now, so you're safe simply by breathing in and out. And it's actually giving more energy to your prefrontal cortex, right here. So you can think a little bit more logically. And so, knowing that our body communicates to our brain 85% of the time, what we want is to tap into that body, into those emotions. Emotions are simply motion experience. So while your brain processes information, your body actually stores it. Here's what's good to know, is emotions don't happen to us. Emotions happen for us. Catch that. Emotions don't happen to us. It's not like the rainy day that you have no control over. It happens for us. Our emotions are signals to our brain that something's happening. For example, peace, frustration, joy, overwhelm. All these things do is tell us something about what's happening around us and can give us insight into what's in or out of alignment. So I do an exercise called Listen to Your Body, and I do this every single day for my own self. And I simply put my hand on my heart. I'll go full screen again. Put my hand on my heart, and I just breathe in, and I say, okay, what does my body know that my brain hasn't conceived yet? What is my body trying to tell me that I'm not aware of? Maybe it's about, like, if I have a decision to make, do I focus on this ideal client or that ideal client? Well, what is my body telling me? Because my body has more information than my brain does. Where's the peace? Where's the joy? Where's the emotion leading me? If there's tension, frustration, overwhelm over here, that's communicating something to me. So what I'll say is, hey, thank you so much, anger or frustration, or overwhelm. Thank you, because you're trying to save me. You're trying to keep me alive. What are you trying to tell me? And then we do an exercise called Turn It Around. So listen to your body, which is just getting you more in tune with what your body's telling you. Do that every single day. Just, okay, what's my body trying to tell me? And then there was a moment. So I want to say about 4 years ago, there was a point in my life where I was really stressed financially, like hyper stressed financially. And I remember staying up at night and I was overwhelmed. I was like, oh my gosh, how are we going to make sales? What's going to happen? And I was super stressed. And I remember I made a decision, and I don't know how. It was just like kind of intuitive. So I don't know where this came from. Maybe I read about it somewhere. I don't know. But essentially, what I did was I said, hey, stress, thank you for letting me know something's wrong. What are you trying to tell me? What lesson do you have for me? And it said, hey, you need to make money. Okay, great. Thank you. I already got that lesson. I don't need that stress anymore. Instead, the energy that's going towards the stress, I want you to become creativity. And I want you, while I'm sleeping, to give me 10 ideas on how I can go make money. And I directed the emotion. I said, I want the stress to turn into creativity and give me 10 ideas so that I can solve this problem. And won't you know, not even 5 minutes later, I started getting ideas on who to reach out to, how to show up, what message to create in my emails, who's waiting to hear from me. Your emotions can fuel that abundance with the proper direction. Is somebody getting this? Like, let me know in the chat. What emotion do you want to see transformed in your life? Okay, so your emotions with direction can fuel abundance. Law number 4. There's more than enough for all of us to win. We talked about this. Celebrations is greater than comparison. Now, here's a little bit of like a secret somebody told me once. And they said, no one is special in the sense of like who wins and who doesn't. It's all just systems. It's the people who are using the system over and over and over and over again that win. It's the people who show up consistently that win. It's not that they're more special than you. It's just they're doing the system. They're working the process. And so lean in, like we already touched on this. Michelle had somebody say yes to her coaching program that she designed like 2 days ago, which was amazing. And so lean into that. Okay, what is the system she used? Let me go use that system. We talked a little bit about this already, so I'm going to go on to law number 5 because we're already running out of time. Oh my goodness. Law number 5, embody, then begin. So Brian Buck, who is our Chief Abundance Officer, he is our executive coach. He works with a lot of our clients. And he told me a story about a client he had who was a gardener. This person loved gardening. And they had a beautiful garden in their home. And what happened was him and his partner ended up divorcing. He lost the house and he ended up moving into an apartment. And one of the biggest things that he felt most devastated was he didn't have his garden. It was his joy. And so Brian started coaching him and he explained, hey, are you a professional gardener? And he said, I am. He said, okay, a gardener will find anywhere to garden. Doesn't matter if you have the big lot or if you're in an apartment. What can you do today as a professional gardener? He asked this of that client to reflect that identity you have. And all these ideas started coming. You know what? I can actually put stuff in my little patio. I can put stuff in my kitchen. I can put stuff in my room to remind me of what I am inside as just a gardener. Brian also shares another story. And he calls this exercise, make it real as fast as possible. Make it as real as possible, as fast as possible. As real as possible, as fast as possible. Somebody put that in the chat. So he was coaching this client. And the client really wanted this brand beautiful car. It was like a beautiful brand new car. And it was like his dream car. He really wanted it. And so he said, okay, great. Tomorrow, as soon as he heard what he wanted, tomorrow, go test drive that car. So he said, okay. So he test drove that car. But then Brian said, I want you to take it another step further. I want you to buy a key to that car so that you can feel that key every single day and remind yourself of what you're working towards, of what you're saving for, of what you're selling for. And so he went and he bought the key for it. And they said, okay, wait, I don't want you to just buy the key. I want you to buy the steering wheel cover that you really want in this car. And for him, it was this beautiful leather-bound, deep brown steering wheel cover. So he bought the steering wheel cover and he said, I want you to put that somewhere you'll see every single day. So he put it right next to his front door so that he sees it every single time he leaves. So he made his vision, which is that having that brand new car, as real as possible, as fast as possible for him. by buying that key, getting that thing. I think it took him about 2 years before he had enough money to pay it in full, buy the car in full, and have some left over for some fun stuff. So embody then begin. This law is all about becoming the person before you get the result of that person. I remember one of the things I had to do was practice my money story. I had to start saying, you know what, I'm already a 7-figure earner. I'm a 7-figure earner. Before I even experienced my first $1 million, I had to say it. I had to believe it. That's already me. And what happened was I began to ask myself then, okay, if I'm a 7-figure earner today, if you're a 7-figure earner today, how does a 7-figure earner show up? What would a 7-figure earner today be doing? Who would they be reaching out to? Who would they be connecting with? And it starts to kind of get your mind thinking in terms of that identity. Somebody put this in the chat. Your identity will impact your behavior way more than desire does. Catch that. Your identity will shape your behavior more than your desire. You might desire to work out every single day, as an example, but if you don't see yourself as someone who works out every day, you'll fall back to old patterns. So you have to have the identity. The identity will shape the behavior no matter how strong your desire is. You're going to have great desire, but you got to shift that behavior or shift that identity. So that's what law number 5 is all about. Law number 6, many hands make light the work. We got 2 laws left. Before I dive into this, let me check the chat. What's coming in? Sean says, your identity shapes behavior more than desire. So good. Abby says, your identity impacts your behavior way more than your desire. Michelle says, this makes me think about when I was talking too fast and I put quarters in my pocket to remind me that every 30 seconds I slowed down, cost the other side 50 cents. I love it. So good. I used to have a rubber band that I would put on my wrist just to, I would click it to remind myself, Sean, during the sales call, shut up. Be quiet. Stop talking so much. Let the other person talk. So such a good reminder. So good. Okay, let's keep going. 2 more laws. Many hands make light the work. People want to help you. They just don't know how. When's the last time you told someone what your mission is? And you said, how can you help me? You have access to more resources than you can imagine. There are so many people who want to support your mission. They just don't know what that is. I don't remember where. I think it was, Monday's coaching. I said, start sharing your story more frequently. If you haven't shared your story and the big, deep why, the big problem you're trying to solve, the lives you're trying to change recently, share it today. Go live in this group and share it just with us, just to give you practice. Share it with one person every day. This is the mission I'm on. This is the problem I want to solve. Can you help me? I guarantee you there are some yeses waiting for you. And last law is abundance for you is abundance for all. Oftentimes people are really resistant to wealth. They're really resistant to success because of all the money stories and all the things that come up when you start experiencing that. Here's the truth. It's never about the money. It's about what you can do with the money. So what do you want to do when you experience abundance? Where is that abundance going to overflow? For me, my abundance of love is going to overflow to my wife, to my daughter, to my family, to my clients, to my friends. My abundance of wealth is going to flow into the exact same. Listen, my daughter has more in her savings account and her investment accounts than I've ever had before the age of 13, before I had a birthday party and I got $100. So the abundance I get to experience gets to flow into her now. What about the abundance of connections and network? Right? I have so many connections I'm so excited to give to my daughter. What do you want to do with your life? Great, let's connect you with the right person. What about you? Where is abundance going to flow? Who are you going to allow to tap into your abundance? You can't control the overflow. It's just an overflow. You can direct it though. So where are you going to direct it? Let me know in the chat 3 areas you're going to direct your abundance. The 7 laws of abundance. You have what you're willing to ask for. You always have something to give. Your emotions fuel abundance. There's more than enough for all of us to win. Embody, then begin. Many hands make light the work. And abundance for you is abundance for all. Abundance for you is abundance for all. Go ahead and take a screenshot of that. I'll give you a couple seconds. All right, I'm going to stop sharing. 3, 2, 1. I know we sped through a lot of that, but it's so powerful when you're able to tap in and lean into these 7 laws of abundance. The very first thing I want you to do is choose one law. Just choose one that you're going to lean into. Maybe it's sharing your story and asking for help. Maybe it's asking for what you want. Maybe it's just doing the desire discovery, identifying what it is you actually want and writing the vision down. There's ancient wisdom that says write the vision down so that a messenger can take it and bring it to another group of people, and they know exactly what you want without ever having to talk to you because you've documented it so well. Choose one law that you're going to tap into and lean into, and I almost guarantee that you'll start to see more opportunity and success and abundance. Now, was this good or what? I'm going to be available to do some Q&A. I believe tomorrow Brian is actually doing extended Q&A tomorrow because I'm on a flight to go back home. So Brian's going to be leading that Q&A tomorrow. And then Friday, I'm going to find some time to do an extended training on my VIP days and how you can do VIP days. Because I promised that last week. I want to make sure I still give that to you and do an extended Q&A on these seven laws of abundance. Now, if you have not yet booked your one-on-one call, we would love to work with you and coach you. And so if you're like, hey, Sean, how do I actually implement these 7 laws into my own business? We would love to help customize today's training for you. Here's the really cool thing. It's a free call. Free call with either myself, with Heather, or with Brian. You'll be able to tap in, ask them questions about these 7 laws, and be able to move from there. Now, here's what's really cool is we actually have a certification program for people who want to tap into coaching. And so maybe Clients with Purpose isn't the best fit for you. Maybe your certification program is. Maybe you're looking at these 7 laws and like, oh my gosh, there's so many cool exercises here. Literally, this is like the tip of the iceberg. There's so many cool exercises here. I want to learn how to become an abundance coach. We have a certification program that goes through the entire process. It's an 18-week process. We won't start that for about 2 months, I believe. But if you want information about that, book a call. We'll tell you all about those details as well, and we'll go from there. All you have to do is go to www.clientswithpurpose.com to book that one-on-one free call. This is your energetic commitment. By booking this call, this is your energetic commitment to say, yes, I want to move forward. So go ahead and I'm going to put the link in the chat so you can go ahead and book your call. Was this helpful or what? Let me know in the chat what your biggest takeaway was and what you're going to implement. I'm Sean Q, your abundance coach today and this week. And I'll see you on Friday. Tomorrow, Brian will be here at 9 a.m. Pacific time to answer all of your questions and more. Thank you so much. Have a great day, everyone.